For this project, the brief was to create a music magazine of at least 4 pages, including a front page, double page spread and a contents page. To complete this task to the best of my ability, I had to use the inspirations and conventions of real magazines that are of the same genre as my own to create an accurate magazine that could be sold. On my front cover, the masthead is key, as it is what the customer first sees and can make a snap judgment on the product based on their first glance. To ensure my masthead is visible from far away, I resized it to be big enough to see from across the room. The font I used is Gill Sans Ultra Bold, as it is a magazine convention and looks professional. It is a sans font which makes it easy to read, much similar to the exposed masthead. To personalise it, I added a drop shadow and made it slightly opaque so that it wasn't too hard-edged against the soft colours in the background. The name and masthead of my magazine is Banjo. I chose this name for the magazine because the subculture, Dick Hevdage, I am aiming towards is indie folk hybrid, so the magazine must be mainstream but with a niche acoustic twist. My masthead connotes this because it is a portmanteau of the words band and banjo, which connote acoustic instruments and bands, which clearly point out the genre of the music and the magazine, and it is easy for the customer to notice. The customer will also notice the main cover image from afar. I chose my model based on my demographic and who they could relate to and see as an ideal self or ideal partner, Carl Rogers. The model is in my age range of 16 to 25 and has an indie haircut as well as a stretched ear, which are popular fashion within this social group. I used a male on the front of my cover because my magazine is aimed at men. I chose to aim for the ideal self rather than ideal partner on the front of the cover because this is a convention of male-based music magazines. I added the folk element by his clothes, location and props. I had my model dressed in skinny jeans, skateboarding trainers and an earthy coloured check shirt. I added the skinny jeans and skateboarding trainers because skateboarding is a stereotypical indie hobby and would give the audience an ideal self for having the latest skateboarding accessories. The checked shirt was chosen because of my imaginary entity, Yanang, who I described as loving checked shirts. Checked patterns connote country and rural, which all lead back to folk culture. The prop I used was an acoustic guitar. I used the guitar to anchor the fact that he is a musician and the type of musician that he is. The location I chose for this image was a cornfield. I chose this because, again, it's a very rural background and offers a warm colour palette to the background of the image. Whilst editing in Photoshop, I did add a gradient of yellow to warm the picture more, but aside from that, the colours are fine. Using Photoshop to digitally enhance photos is a magazine convention and makes the model look more appealing by removing its imperfections. The customer will also notice the main cover line. I developed the magazine convention by making it very large but challenged convention by having it to be 3D. I used this technique to add the hipster feel of the magazine and make my magazine different to the rest. I put all of my cover lines on one side of the magazine to balance out the text-to-image ratio. I also made sure that they were all put together so that I could pastiche the exposed magazine's sidebar. I used well-known bands on the front cover to attract fans of the bands. This is the way in which I developed magazine convention. In a similar way, I also challenged magazine convention by using new and upcoming bands' names to interest new readers. On the contents page, I challenged magazine convention by including few but large images. The main image on the contents page takes up half of the page space, which implies that this is the important article. Within my contents page, I included a short article instead of an editor's note. In a way, this challenges magazine convention because it is usually a message from the editor, but in some ways, it develops convention because most editor's notes have a topic of review. I created a small article to show the reader the type of journalism and topics that will be inside the magazine, and hopefully interest them enough to read more or buy the magazine. I used Adobe InDesign rules and guides to line up the contents of my magazine to make sure that the lines and text were even and straight. This is a magazine convention and makes the magazine look more professional. I pastiched the layout of Kerrang magazine for my contents page. I pastiched the idea of the main title banner going halfway down the page instead of at the top. For most magazines this will challenge the convention, but for both mine and Kerrang it follows convention. I also made subheadings of the contents in bold to make them easy to see, which most magazines do, to highlight the most important or most attractive part of the article. On my double-page spread, I developed magazine convention by separating the pages between text and image. This is useful in making the double-page spread look more aesthetically pleasing. It also attracts the reader's eye to the image before the text and acts as anchorage to the interview so that the reader knows who the interview is with. I broke magazine convention by using a background image. I decided to use a background image to mix up the flow of the magazine and to make it look more creative and interesting. On my double-page spread, I challenged magazine convention by having the artist looking away from the reader's direct gaze. This connotes that he is mysterious and rebellious to convention. On my title page, I developed magazine convention through my use of slug lines. I used slug lines to clarify what the pages were for. I broke magazine convention by putting a pull quote of the interview on the title page instead of on the actual interview. I used this technique to give a preview of the interview that was interesting enough to make the reader want to know more. By using an image with a negative looking space, it gave me the opportunity to use it as a background for the other content on the title page. I challenged magazine convention in my promotional poster by making it very simplistic and not using an image of the artist or song on it. I use this to connote that the artist/album is mysterious and underground, which appeals to hipster tastes and culture. The promotional poster shows that Banjo is a good advertising space and allows future advertisers to visualise how their own labels and bands could be advertised there.